Okay. 2 Samuel 8. In the course of time, David defeated the Philistines and subdued them, and he took Metheg-Ammah from the control of the Philistines. The cats are getting into things. We'll read in 1 Chronicles, it makes more sense. We'll read about him taking Gath out of the hands of the Philistines. We'll read about that when we get done with this. David also defeated the Moabites. Now remember, the Moabites not only are kinsmen of Israel, but they're also kinsmen of David. David's ancestors. David's great grandmother, I think it is. Ruth was a Moabite woman. In fact, David actually went to the Moabites briefly for a while to take refuge there while he was running from Saul. But he had to fight them too, apparently. So he also defeated the Moabites. He made them lie down on the ground and measured them off with a length of cord. Every 2 lengths of them were put to death. So every 2 out of 3, I guess. And the 3rd length was allowed to live. So the Moabites became subject to David and brought tribute. I don't know if we should see this as an act of mercy of David's part or not. What are they doing over there? Cats. I have cats. I am so afflicted. I have cats, and they just get into things all the time. What are they doing over there? I'll have to get to them later. There we go. What they're doing. I don't know if you can hear that on the microphone or not. I don't know if the microphone is picking that up, but they're doing something back there. I don't know if him sparing every 3rd Moabite is supposed to be an act of mercy. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what the context there is supposed to be. He did have a connection with them. I don't know what prompted this fight. Did the Moabites attack them? I don't know. The Ammonites are going to attack them a little bit later. We'll have a long and protracted war with them that we read about. I don't know what the deal was with these Moabites, but moreover, David fought Hadadezer, son of Rehob, king of Zobah, when he went to restore his control along the Euphrates River. David captured 1,000 of his chariots, 7,000 charioteers, and 20,000 foot soldiers. He hamstrung all but 100 of the chariot horses. Now kings were not allowed to build up huge militaries for themselves. What are you cats doing? Way back in Deuteronomy 17, as part of Moses' farewell set of instructions to Israel, he tells them, this is Deuteronomy. Next time I'll put them in the bedroom before I get started. They're just so much, all 3 of them are just nuts today. Deuteronomy 17, verse 14. Remember, this is hundreds of years before they would even have a king. This is Moses talking in the year 1406 BC, and they wouldn't crown Saul king until the mid-1000s BC, so 350 plus years later. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, and have taken possession of it and settled in it, and you say, let us set a king over us like all the nations around us. Be sure to appoint over you the king the Lord your God chooses. They did do that. What are you doing, cat? Seriously. Goodness gracious. Do not put, he must be from among your own brothers. Blah, 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 blah. Cat, what is your problem? Verse 16. You go in there. You just go in there and stay in there. The king, moreover, must not acquire great numbers of horses for himself, or make the people return to Egypt to get more of them. The Lord has told you, you must not go back that way again. So he was not. It also goes on to say, he must not take many wives, or his heart will be led astray. he must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold. David is flirting with breaking these commands. Now, he didn't take these horses, but he is going to take a lot of women as wives, and we're going to have problems with that, as we see. Of course, Solomon will take even more, and we'll have even more trouble. But he is going to take a number of women as wives. That is going to be kind of a problem. He is going to take a lot of silver and gold, too. Now, he's going to put it in the temple treasury. But he's flirting with disaster by coming this close to breaking some of these laws. But here in this case, he is not keeping these horses and chariots for himself. Solomon will. Solomon will grow a chariot army, but David does not. When the Arameans of Damascus, back to 2 Samuel 8, by the way, when the Arameans of Damascus came to help Hadadezer, king of Zobah, David struck down 22,000 of them. This is north of Israel. This is the area that we would today call Syria. David struck down 22,000 of them. He put garrisons in the Aramean kingdom of Damascus, and the Arameans became subject to him and brought tribute. The Lord gave David victory wherever he went. David took the gold shields that belonged to the officers of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem. From Tebah and Berothai, towns that had belonged to Hadadezer, King David took a great quantity of bronze. When Tola, king of Hamath, heard that David had defeated the entire army of Hadadezer. By the way, these Arameans, these people, this is a country to the north of Israel, and they're going to be fighting them a lot in centuries to come. We are not by any means done hearing about these Arameans or these Hadadezers or whatever. We're going to be reading a lot about them in the days to come. The Philistines are basically gone as a threat. David's fight with the Philistines here pretty much finishes him off as a recurring enemy. But we have plenty more enemies to deal with. There's always something going on. There's always some enemies coming from somewhere. So anyway, when Tau, king of Hamath, heard that David had defeated the entire army of Hadadezer, he sent his son Joram to King David to greet him and congratulate him on his victory in battle over Hadadezer, who had been at war with Tau. So they had been enemies. So an enemy of an enemy is my friend. Joram brought with him articles of silver and gold and bronze. King David dedicated these articles to the Lord, as he had done with the silver and gold from all the nations he had subdued. So he is collecting a treasury here. And so we are kind of bordering on, danger zone when it comes to not accumulating personal wealth. Now, David is storing this wealth in a treasury meant for the temple of the Lord someday, that his son is going to build. But he is still nonetheless collecting this wealth and is, flirting with disaster by doing something that the king is not supposed to do. He's not going to cross over and cause trouble with this wealth, but the precedent he's setting is going to cause trouble for them later. Excuse me. Edom and Moab, the Ammonite, wait. Okay, as he had done with the silver and gold from all the nations he had subdued. Edom and Moab, the Ammonites and the Philistines, and Amalek. Remember Amalek? The Amalekites, they're still around. He finally got rid of them. He also dedicated the plunder taken from Hadadezer, son of Rehob, king of Zobah. And David became famous after he returned from striking down 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. He put garrisons throughout Edom, and all the Edomites became subject to David. The Lord gave David victory wherever he went. David reigned over all Israel, doing what was just and right for all the people. Joab, son of Zeruiah, was over the army. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was recorder. He's the scribe, the historian. Zadok, son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, son of Abiathar, were priests. Sariah was secretary. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was over the Kerethites and Pelethites. And David's sons were royal advisors. It says down here, David's sons were priests. David shouldn't have made his sons priests. I'm not sure how close he came to making his sons priests. I don't know where the line was crossed, was drawn between royal advisors and priests. We saw David wearing an ephod earlier, which was the clothing of the priests, and apparently he designed ephod outfits for his entire choir in his worship services. So David was kind of flirting with doing a little bit too much in that regard too. I guess he didn't do too much in that regard, but he was kind of in that, he was kind of encroaching there. These Kenathites and Pelethites, these would have been foreign bodyguards, basically. David's inner circle of bodyguards would have been foreigners. They would be less likely to be susceptible to plotting against the king due to some sort of national loyal or tribal loyalty or something like that. 1 Chronicles 18. Let's go over this account of all this stuff. In the course of time, David defeated the Philistines and subdued them. And he took Gath and its surrounding villages in the control of the Philistines. Now, if you remember, Gath is where David had actually gone for refuge in the closing days of his fight from Saul. In fact, he was going to fight with them against Saul at one point, and the other leaders of the Philistines told the guy from Gath to send him home to where he was staying at that time, Ziklag. I don't know if he fought Gath. It doesn't really say how he took Gath. Maybe because he had an alliance there with the king of Gath, maybe he used that as leverage to get a foothold in the territory. Maybe he just broke his alliance. Maybe they broke theirs. Maybe they came after. I don't know. It really is. It doesn't say. But there is something about Gath. Something about him taking Gath basically meant he broke the power of the Philistines over Israel. And again, I don't know. Maybe he did that. Maybe it was because there was a connection between him and Gath. Maybe he used that connection somehow that he had developed earlier to do it. I don't know. You would kind of think so. You kind of think that would factor into it somehow. But it doesn't say how. David also defeated the Moabites, and they became subject to him and brought him tribute. Moreover, David fought Hadadezer, king of Zobah, as far as Hamath, when he went to establish his control along the Euphrates River. And if you remember, by the way back in the day, and we're talking way back in the day, God told Abraham that the land he's going to give his descendants was going to go all the way to the river. In Genesis 15, at the end of the chapter, when they're making that big covenant, and Abraham cut the animals in pieces and put them on two sides of a small lane or a path, and then God appeared in a blazing pot and passed between the pieces while Abraham was asleep. He makes a covenant with Abram in Genesis 15, verse 18, and he says, "To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt," that's the Wadi of Egypt, "to the great river, the Euphrates." And he goes on, so their territories were supposed to extend to the Euphrates River. David is trying to make that happen here. David captured 1,000 of his chariots, 7,000 charioteers, and 20,000 foot soldiers. He hamstrung all but 100 of the chariot horses. When the Arameans of Damascus came to help Hadadezer, king of Zobah, David struck down 22,000 of them. He put garrisons in the Aramean kingdom of Damascus, and the Arameans became subject to him and brought him tribute. The Lord gave David victory everywhere he went. David took the gold seals carried by the officers of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem. From Tebah and Kun, towns that belonged to Hadadezer, David took a great quantity of bronze, which Solomon used to make the bronze seat. We'll talk about what that is later. The pillars and the various bronze articles. So this stuff that David is collecting is stuff that would go into the building of the temple and its furnishings later on. When Tou, king of Hamath, heard that David had defeated the entire army of Hadadezer, king of Zobah, he sent his son Hadoram to King David to greet him and congratulate him on his victory in battle over Hadadezer, who had been at war with Tou. Hadoram brought all kinds of articles of gold and silver and bronze. King David dedicated these articles to the Lord, as he had done with the silver and gold he had taken from all these nations, Edom and Moab, the Ammonites and the Philistines, and Amalek. Abishai, son of Zeruiah, struck down 18,000 Edomites in the valley of Salt. He put garrisons in Edom, and all the Edomites became subject to David. The Lord gave David victory everywhere he went. David reigned over all Israel, doing what was just and right for all his people. Joab, son of Zeruiah, was over the army. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was recorder. Zadok, son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, son of Abiathar, were priests. Shavshah was secretary. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was over the Kerethites and Pelethites, and David's sons were chief officials at the king's side.